Okay, looks like I'm live. Just checking to make sure everything is all good to go. Rumble, we're having trouble streaming to your destination. Oh, come on. Oh, I think I know what it is. I think I know what it is. So, so hold on there, folks. Just one sec here. Just got to do something real quick. Kind of trying to do all this stuff on the fly here. It's been a while. Seems like I'm a little rusty. Okay, let's go to put this in here. Or I guess I could just upload it later. Okay, we'll skip that. That's too bad, though. That's too bad. That's too bad for sure. Actually, no, maybe we should just do it right now. It'll give a few minutes for folks to get the notification and stream in anyway. So why not, right? Why not? Let's do it. Let's do it. Give me just one moment here, folks. Hope everyone's doing okay today. Really important subject matter we're going to be covering. Podcasts, higher quality. Yes, we want higher quality for sure. Oh, there we go. That looks pretty good. N. Where is it? M. There we go. We got to add the placeholder. Where are we at here? There we go. Ooh, I'm doing this really, really quick, aren't I? Well, this isn't the ideal way to start, but I don't want to miss out on the Rumble because I do get quite a few views on Rumble nowadays. So it's definitely worthwhile. And sure, they could watch it after the fact, but why not do it while it's live? That seems to be the best way to do it, right? We'll worry about tag and stuff now. What do you want to do? Go live right now. Right now. All right. Just give it one more sec there, folks. Like I say, sorry about that. But I do want to make sure that this. Oh, by the way, this is being live streamed to X, formerly known as Twitter as well. That's one area so far that I don't get a lot of views. Although I will admit, even listening to a few people that are, big time X insiders, formerly known as Twitter, a lot of them didn't even know themselves that you could live stream. I've been doing it, as you folks know, or the regular watchers and listeners to my show, my podcast here is. I've been doing it for quite a while. Yeah, mostly with very minimal views, that for sure. But hey, I've been doing it. At least I could say I was out there front and center, right? As I am in most situations, as well as you find folks. Pretty good thing. That's the thing, though. It's remember you got to keep that in mind when you're way out in front compared to most people. Sometimes it seems like you're kind of isolated and alone, right? But it's still a really really good position or place to be because eventually, and that's kind of going along with the theme of this particular podcast is eventually everyone else will catch up, right? Hashtag collectivism, right? Hashtag Nazis, commies, socialists, fascists, the whole spiel. Yeah, authoritarian collectivism. Yeah, it's an ugly, ugly ideology that has many iterations, as some unsuspecting Canadians, as many unsuspecting Canadians are finally starting to find out, right? Now, let's see. Yes, I have not signed any agreement. Like I say, I'm actually setting this up on the fly here on the old Rumble, but got to be done. And thanks to the fine folks over there at Rumble who stood up against, these authoritarians there, not just in our countries, but in our country, but others as well. Is yeah, they're saying no, freedom of speech is important, because they're trying to silence people. What was it, the whole Russell Brand thing? But we're going to move past that. Not really delving in. As you folks, I don't really care about talking about other people per se. What's that expression? Small minds discuss people, average minds discuss events, and great minds discuss ideas. Well, I love discussing ideas, as you folks know. And the idea that will be the theme of this show is rejecting any ideology that seeks to deny the individual rights of the individual, right? For some form of the greater good or the collective or the state, right? Because we're finding out, well, that yes, this is the newest iteration that's finally come to light. As the theme says that, yeah, there's Nazis among us. Not like I didn't already know that. Hello. Trudeau invoking the Emergencies Act against peaceful truck drivers who were standing up for their inherent rights and freedoms and saying, no, you can't force me to take a vaccine and take my job away for that stuff, right? And what did they get as a response? There we go. We're going to do the streamer configuration. So let me go. I wonder if I can do this actually while. Gee, I wonder if this will mess things up if I do this right now. Settings. Where are we at here? Shoot, I don't think I can do it actually right now. Well, that might have been all in vain. Well, that kind of sucks, doesn't it? General. Let's see if it's in general. Nope. God darn it. God darn it. I'll be getting to the comments there, folks. Just give me a sec here. Like I said, I'm trying to get this Rumble thing. Well, at least it is saying that the live stream is set up. Well, we're going to hope that it works. We're going to hope that it works. Or how about we just go to the actual live stream? Can I? And see what's going on? Let's check it out. Maybe it is actually working right now. I'm going to check here, folks. Please wait till your video finishes processing. Okay. It's showing live, but nothing is happening as of yet. Oh, wait. Something's happening. Something is happening. Usually I would have had all this long and done, but this has been a very, very hectic season. This is another weekend and continuing that hectic season, and I've still got a lot of left to do, but I figured, listen, I've got to squeeze it in now. I've got to get this live stream done. Really, really important. And this is the kind of stuff that, that really needs to be covered. I'm not sure if it's working on the Rumble here, folks, but we're going to close that up and hope for the best. Anyways, let me just check in the chat here before I get into the nitty-gritty of it all. I see David is in the chat. Hey, Bennett. Hey, David 119. That looks like, is that David from Texas? I think it is. Anyways, nice seeing you in the stream there, David. Really appreciate you joining. Mustang 607. Remember you from ThinkSpot. Oh, great. ThinkSpot. Actually, it's funny you mentioned ThinkSpot because I haven't been on much of my social media, and it does kind of irk me because I really like to stay on top of things, right? But I'm still, tacitly sitting back and observing and still paying attention to a degree. I'm just not active as much on my social media pages because, like I say, weekends have been kind of hectic. The weeks are really, really hectic. But yeah, in terms of the ThinkSpot, I did see I got a notification. Was it Nancy Churchill from ThinkSpot, I believe? Anyways, that it's a pretty cool layout there. They've changed up the format. I'm still a subscriber on ThinkSpot. I pay for the service. It is a free speech service, and I've got some great posts up there. If I don't mind patting myself on the back, but there's some great stuff, some great content on there, and I definitely want to keep it going. And I really like ThinkSpot. You find more people that are actually willing to discuss and engage regarding ideas and stuff, and philosophical concepts, first principles, and the things that matter, right? Rather than just gossiping, right? Or playing the whole blue team versus red team, left versus right nonsense, right? Because as we know, right, left wing, right wing, well, they're both, all authoritarian birds need both wings, right, to survive and to take flight. And as much as we might know that, there's a whole lot of other people that need to know that. But nice to see you in the chat there, Mustang 607. Really appreciate that. Myself, I reject all ideological force that seeks to force idea. Exactly. And that's pretty simple. But you know what? That's funny. It's so funny. Like that is, if someone were to read that's like, well, that seems like a really, really reasonable stance to take, except typically the media, which once again, misdirection, all that stuff, they would call us the radicals or the extremists, right? Or far something or other, right? Really, no. I have a live, let live mentality, just like David here. I want people to, act as peaceful as humanly possible. I don't expect utopia. That's another thing about us. Well, some of us libertarians can't speak for all, right? I'm not a collectivist, but yeah, I don't have any utopian ideals. I just like leave me the fuck alone. Don't cause harm me. Don't steal my shit, right? Right. Raping's bad. All that stuff it seems like a pretty normal stance, or at least an ethical and should be normal, common sense stance on things. But once again, the media, the ruling class, the people that want to use misdirection, right? Or as we're seeing a lot of projection, but they will never admit that. Yeah, we're the ones that get labeled as extremists or radicals. Now, there's nothing that I consider radical. Well, I mean, if liberty is radical, think about the people, right, who think liberty is radical or promote the idea that liberty is radical. Think about those type of folks, right? Would you really want to surround yourself with people like that? I know I sure shit don't. And I don't, right? I reject them entirely. And they hate when you reject them. Oh, that's the whole thing with collectivism and groupthink and tribalism, right? Oh, how dare you stand on your own 2 feet? You must succumb. You must conform, obey, or else, nah, fuck you, right? That's my response. A big double O fuck you. No, I am me, and that's all I'm ever going to be. If you're cool, even if a group, once again, it comes down to the individuals within the group. I won't just say I conform to any particular group, because there's always bad people among us. Or this is the other thing about good and bad, right? Every one of us can be good or bad depending on the given day or the time in our life, right? So once again, there's a whole lot of nuance that never gets offered up from the collectivists or the authoritarians or the people that want to play tribalism or identity politics, right? No, it's pitting entire groups against each other. It's divide and conquer, and it does work, unfortunately. After all, even God gives us free will of choice, right? Right? Exactly, David. Exactly. Yes, Texas, same guy. Awesome. Well, thanks once again for you folks who have joined the stream already. And I think, should we start off? Here's the thing. It's like, should I start off with a couple of the ridiculous CBC articles in the kind of apologetic manner, or should we get into the nitty gritty of the whole history and background, right, of the Galatian unit, right? And those who volunteered, yes, folks, weren't conscripted, but volunteered to be the henchmen for the Nazi regime, right? That says a lot, right? I mean, if you're conscripted or a gun was put in your head and said, fight or else, you could kind of make an excuse a little bit. I mean, at least, right? At least there's something there, some basis for a defense of what they did. But when you volunteer, nobody conscripted you. You didn't have to, but you just volunteered that I want to go kill me some Russians. Yeah, right? Yeah, that's some bad news, folks. Bad news. But anyways, we're going to get to all that. But should I lead off? Anyways, and then, of course, there's other stuff. There's really, really amazing information. And once again, how many times have you heard this stuff talked about, right? Now, I'll even admit myself, I haven't talked about this particular thing, but we're all aware that I've talked about authoritarian collectivism and the many different iterations of regimes, especially in particular in the 20th century, right? That imposed their will on others or the minority or all that stuff, right? So we're all well aware of that. Now, knowing every example of that, or even knowing some of this history, like I'll admit myself, I was a little bit ignorant to this particular individual, right? But was I shocked or surprised that there were Nazis living among us? Hell no. Hell no. Not in the slightest. Not in the slightest. Because I already recognize there are Nazis, which are let's just familiarize ourselves once again, folks. What is a Nazi, right? Let's go with that here. Let's lead off with that, right? Let me bring this up on the screen so that everyone can familiarize yourself, although I'm well aware that most of you folks are quite familiar with the definition, because definitions matter, right? Words matter. That's what gives you the proper context and what you're talking about. That's the thing when people misrepresent or misconstrue what words actually mean or try to create their own meanings. Yeah, it's kind of hard to have a conversation when that's the case, because it's basically like you're talking two different languages. But so here, This is even even the Google or the wiki, right? Right, whatever. I'm not saying that wiki's the Bible in terms of things, but even wiki will acknowledge, or even Google's dictionary will acknowledge what a Nazi is, which is a member of the, and I love this, but this far right thing, no wonder it's underlined. Like, far right, really? Really? I don't know how they come up with far right, because conservatives, right, is what you're talking about, far right these days in terms of what most people think that they mean, because that's usually who's labeled as far right these days are conservatives. Really, they're socialists, right? Meaning, well, I was growing up, and the way conservatives were presenting themselves, or even people on the other side of the political aisle would describe them as conservative, means that fiscally responsible, and definitely not a fan. It's like socialism is trying to create equality. Capitalists, conservatives and capitalism kind of tend to go together, right? Right. They're the business owners, right? Whether you're talking Republican, they're the corporatists and all this stuff. They're the ones all about business, not the workers, right? When you're talking about the whole worker versus employer kind of thing, or the boss and versus the unions, right? So they're the socialists, right? You're accusing far right, like conservatives, of being socialists. What, want to spread all the wealth around to everybody equally? Really? Once again, I knew that, and I've covered that in many videos in the past. But yeah, far right, that's a bit of a misnomer there on its own. But hey, what does it actually stand for? Is the National Socialist German Workers' Party, right? Far right. That's so insane. But once again, the people who write history are the ones that get to determine what people think about it. And if you're not willing to step outside what they try to jam into your head, right? People would walk away from this and thinking that socialists are conservatives, right? It doesn't take much, but if you spend the amount of time like people like myself to figure this stuff out, to learn a lot more, get a lot more nuance, to start looking at some of that gray area in between, as you realize that wait. And the fact of the grievances, the Mein Kampf, my struggle, right? Against the Jews, which were the ones that would have been the ones that owned all the business. And have you seen Hitler? Once again, I've covered that in terms not just his physical appearance, but it's once again, so continue on. A person who seeks to impose their views on others in a very autocratic or inflexible way. Who among us these days are trying to impose their views on others in a very autocratic and inflexible way? The woke mob, the identity politics folks, the Trudeau liberals, along with their NDP counterparts, right? Who have been propping up and sustaining this authoritarian regime, even after the invocation of the Emergencies Act and all those mindless bootlicker or order followers, the badgeless, nameless ones, all dressed in military garb or riot gear, that were down there beating up on and breaking into the mobile RVs and all that stuff of the peaceful truckers, right? Or the ones like the Trudeau liberals that introduced and passed C11, C18, all these attempts to silence and suppress freedom of speech, right? Or it's my way or the highway in terms of the LGBTQ, blah, 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 blah. We must impose this on your kids, right? I mean, think about it. A simple answer for the whole thing, especially when you're talking about the school thing, let me just kind of delve into that just real quick, is listen, for all the parents that, I want my kids to, you don't have no right to prevent my kids from being taught about gender ideology or this LGBTQs. And then the parents on the other side, if you watch the protesters, counter protesters, well, you don't have any right to impose that teaching that kind of ideology on my kids. And then the counter protesters once again are saying, well, you don't have a right to prevent my kids from learning about that. And here I am as a libertarian. I'd be like saying to both of them, listen, this is how it works, folks. This is how liberty works. You don't get to impose your ideas on the others, and the others don't get to impose their ideas on you. How's about that? So if you go to school and you want your kids, from grade 1 on to learn about all the genders, right, and all this LGBT, then you go ahead, you opt into that. And for you parents who don't want your kids to be taught that stuff, well, you opt out, right? And then that seems like a peaceful way to make sure that nobody's imposing their will on each other. But that's not happening, is it? Right? No, it's got to be my way or the highway, seemingly from both sides. Nobody wants to listen to the libertarians, though. Why? Because once they've heard a kind of reasonable stance like this, it destroys the whole left versus right, the whole us versus them, right? The fact that either of them, right? That's the thing with tribalism, which is why I don't join either side. Won't have nothing to do with either side. I'll talk with either side, but you better come to starting to learn to be more reasonable in your approach, because I'll definitely hold every one of you to account and point out the fact that clarity of language gives clarity of thought and clarity of mind. And instead of this constant bullshit bantering back and forth about whose ideology or who should impose their will on each other, right? But yeah, there it is right there in black and white. I learned to be more open and not such a Nazi in the studio. That's kind of a weird example. But anyway, so there you go, right? There you go. That's what a Nazi is. Sounds a whole lot, like I said, the true liberals. Oh, I just found out too today that, yeah, podcasting like this, yeah, that's going to the CRTC. You're going to have to submit, right? And now be regulated, which means give Trudeau and his ilk the ability to silence and suppress us even further, which is so fucking weird. It's like, holy fuck, am I not silenced and suppressed enough at this point, right? But yet, no. Apparently, there's still one or two of you that are listening to me. So I guess they got to come down with a heavy hand even harder, right? Anyways, going to jump back into the chat here real quick. Apparently I must have been really pissing some people off already this morning. See, the views have already gone down. Oh, well, I do what I do. They can whine and cry about it later because, yeah, that's what I do. It's what I do. Okay. Okay, let's see here. Did you see the study that people were doing weird things in an office just because they had everyone else do it? Weak minds follow the majority. Not sure on that particular study, David, but I'm quite familiar with many iterations of such, though. Howdy from Ontario. Hello, Silent Walk. Thank you for joining the live stream. Really appreciate that. Just the way of more division. Yeah, divide and conquer, right? And people just allow it to continue on, and they fall for it. Oh, yes, and that's another thing. Let's read this here. I've studied Bolshevism, communism, real history and all that, and we were being lied to about World War II, Nazis and their original purpose, but that would make me racist and the dreaded antiseptic. Well, here's the thing, right? This is the part where it doesn't matter. It doesn't even matter if there's revisionism or if you were duped in any way. I reject both. This is, once again, just like I was saying with the parents, right? And the activists in terms of whether they get to impose their will on each other. I'm just as much against and philosophical libertarians, people that are actually principled, are every bit as much against. Oh, by the way, I should ask, is the volume working and everything on this? Because, yeah, it was when I was setting up this live stream, if someone could just answer, is my volume good? Is everything good there in terms of the live stream? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? I hope so, right? Anyways, if someone would mind answer that. But, yeah, I reject all forms of authoritarian collectivism, whether we're talking communism, socialism, fascism, Nazism, all of it, right? There is no such thing as a good form of authoritarian collectivism. So I would have rejected either side. I would have neither. That's why I would have never entered into the fray to go kill people that I have no clue who they are, their background, their history, what they themselves are fighting for. Because that's the other thing. What's that old expression? One man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. I mean, come on. Even the whole thing with, and this should be front and center in the minds of the masses. Even now, if you think about the whole India and Khalistan or whatever, the Sikhs, and they want to, separate. I'm not a fan of forced association, but I'm also not a fan of terrorism either. But once again, there's so much nuance to that kind of stuff. But this is the part where so many people in so many of our lives have failed us by properly articulating these things and educate and inform us. But this is why I do what I do, is to try to fill that gap, to fill that void, to give people more nuance to these things so they're thinking critically rather than just playing the tribalism or the identity politics or the us versus them thing to it. Because there's a whole lot more to life than a simple script like, we're the goodies, they're the baddies. Like, that would be so easy, right? Especially, what is the we? Who are the we? What represents the we? I can only speak for myself, and I can honestly say that I've been both good and bad in my life at different times. Definitely not nearly as bad, right? As some or others. That's the thing. There's varying degrees too, right? But that's why nuance has to be interjected into these conversations and why I do what I do. Anyways, let me get back. Yeah, sorry, I was going to finish reading that. Oh no, you read. I got you. I got you. Division mostly by a small population, as was all throughout history. Some people love playing the divisive stuff, right? Identity politics is definitely something, and it works. Like I say, it works. Okay. Same ones. Once you wake up, it's pretty hard to go back to sleep because you can see everything now. Yes, that's definitely a statement that I can say. It's once you realize that authoritarian collectivism or the country you live in, right? I mean, once you realize that people are so willing to play these tribalist games, but once again, it's so instinctive in the human mind and the human psyche to have that in-group preference. But I mean, we live in the 21st century in the information age of all things, you know, and of course that expression in the age of information, ignorance truly is a choice. I mean, yes, we can all be susceptible to these things, right? But that's where the onus is on each and every one of us to fight, to battle that stuff, even in our own minds, and to seek out proper information to help develop our minds past this kind of nonsense, right? This kind of ultra nationalism or collectivism, right? Pick your iteration once again. But if you're unwilling to do so, then yes, you're going to be stuck in the trap, right? And so will your mind. And because of that trap and its you know power and ability to make people feel like that nationalism, it makes people feel part of the group. And everybody wants to be part of the group or a group. It's very powerful. It's very magnetic. It's overwhelming to some people, but there are those of us who reject it outright. And it took me a long time in my life to even learn all this stuff to be able to figure this stuff out. So I understand if people aren't there yet, but at the very least, they should be taking the time to at least try to learn. At least try to learn. I mean, you live in the age of information. At least try to learn. At least try to get some nuance. That's at least a bare minimum requirement, right? Oh, thank you very much, David. Volume's good. Really appreciate that. Oh, yeah, a lot of mainstream media parrots. Big time, big time. Anyway, so let's get into I'm just gonna let's go with this here. Yeah. Let me bring this on the screen. Because the apologists are out doing what they do, right? Apologizing. I mean, just think my thing right off the bat is think about if this was, the current conservatives right now, or let's say, the PPC or anyone that the establishment currently don't care for, right? Or they perceive as their enemy or their opponents. And think about how this CBC article would be covering the story, right? Imagine if it was Harper that was when he was the prime minister. And we're going to get to the whole Harper thing, let me tell you, right? Because, I'm not defending either conservatives or liberals because, claiming ignorance, about this history and about what Canada represented at the time and the things that Canada did in terms of bringing in thousands of Nazis and giving them, protection, right? After the Nuremberg trials and all that stuff, and still, living in this country for decades, right? To pretend that, oh, nobody knew. Right? It's really, though, really? Come on. But anyways, but we know how this would have been covered, right? How the political posturing would have been, how thick and heavy the propaganda would have been. So here we go. So CBC News under the politics section, of course. Family of man who fought in Nazi unit unaware Hunka would be honored in parliament, friend says. Now, if this was against the conservatives, if this was Harper when he was in power, how that would have been that headline, it would have been more along the lines of not just that this guy fought in a Nazi unit, but was a Nazi. I mean, come on, the media, especially towards the truckers and stuff, were falling all over themselves, calling everyone Nazis. I mean, think about it. Anyone that challenges the status quo or the establishment are called far right and Nazis and worse, right? Trudeau himself has done it. Myriad times it can be found. It's all over the internet. But yet, he fought in a Nazi unit, right? And they were all unaware that Hunka would be honored. Anyways, so whether that's the case, who could say, right? But the family is in hiding here in North Bay, friend says, amid the international controversy. This is reported by Ashley Burke, September 30th, 2023. A longtime friend said the Hunka family was unaware 98-year-old Yaroslav Hunka would be honored in Parliament last week in front of Ukraine's president, setting off an international controversy. Barb Bonenfant, who lives in North Bay, Ontario, told CBC News that Hunka's daughter-in-law sent her a message on Sunday after the public backlash began. She said that her family, and that's the other thing, would there have even been a backlash? Like, why did established media outlets like the CBC and all them take all the way till the end of the, like, days later to start covering this stuff? Well, it was other people, a Jewish group and folks like Rebel Media that covered this stuff. But if they could have got away with just brushing this under the carpet, who's to say that they wouldn't have, right? But now they've been forced. The spotlight has been placed upon it, and they were forced to have to interject. But listen to how they're doing it. She said that her family was shocked at what happened. If her and her husband would have had any idea what was going to happen, they would have never brought the 98-year-old man to Ottawa. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau offered unreserved apologies on Canada's behalf on Wednesday for parliamentarians given a standing ovation without knowing the Ukrainian Second World War veteran fought for Nazi Germany. Trudeau called it an egregious error that deeply embarrassed Parliament Canada. Well, first of all, we all heard the bullshit. Trudeau, whether it's in the Parliament, apologizing on behalf of all of the Parliament, right? Or when he was asked by the reporter to actually apologize himself, I apologize on behalf of Canadians. Like, how collectivist is that? No, you don't fucking speak for me, Trudeau, because I never did a goddamn thing. You're not apologizing for me or anyone in my family or anyone that I know. Why? Because we don't support, nor did we ever support Nazis, commies, fascists, or any other authoritarian collectivists. So to pretend that you're speaking on my behalf, you fucking low-life piece of shit, like, that really irks me when the idiot, and he's such a coward, such a fucking snake oil salesman. And I mean, I don't know how the people who support him, I don't know how they lay their head in bed at night, continuing to do so. I mean, to pretend that they're just going to be able to sweep all this under the rug. I like I say, now they're busy, hard at work, trying to do some revisionism and making sure that they're the ones that get to tell the story going forward. But when has that ever worked out with 100% certainty in the past, right? The reason why we know all about the atrocities that happened in the 20th century is because of those who didn't just go along to get along. There's always a few of us. There's always at least enough. The truth is never, ever, ever fully hidden, is it? Nope. Trudeau also said Canada reached out to Kiev through diplomatic channels to apologize to President Volodymyr. Why are you fucking apologizing? Like, this whole thing that they're, listen, just to point out that Zelensky, they brought in a Nazi regime, the Azov Battalion, right? And a bunch of them that even identify as fucking Nazis and big time supporters of Nazism, brought them into the fold of their own military, the ones fighting against Russia, so that they didn't stand out like a sore thumb. So it's not like even Zelensky is against Nazism or National Socialism. I mean, holy fuck. The guy, I mean, Zelensky himself goes around to every country in the world, which taxation is theft, right? But, or hashtag inflation theft, with this fucking hand held out for the what is at this point, the hundreds of billions of dollars that the governments, whether you're talking about Canadian government or the American government, who are forcing the unborn, entire successive generations to pay for this shit, people that aren't even alive to protest or to go against it or say, no, I don't support it, right? Constantly. I mean, the fact is Zelensky at least fucking smart enough to know that, hey, how governments work and how taxation works and how immoral it is to take money from the unborn to pay for your little war, right? I didn't sign up for shit, but unfortunately, me and my kids, my grandkids, and who knows for how long, how many generations are going to be forced to pay for this shit. When I say, no, I don't want to be involved with that crap. Not for either side. Wouldn't matter to support Russia or to support Ukraine. I want nothing to do with that shit. Right? But once again, through this ultra nationalism, and Trudeau's we're a post-national state. Yeah, all he ever does is go around and says, Canada this, Canada this. Well, Canada's a nation, and you constantly promote and support and tout nationalism, while at the other side of your mouth pretending that you're anti-nationalist. Like, what a fucking, these people. Orwellian indeed. Hunka's local MP, Anthony Rota, first apologized on Sunday and again in the House of Commons on Tuesday when he tendered his resignation as Speaker. Rota said he was unaware of Hunka's past after it came late. He served with the 14th Waffen Grenadier Division of the SS. So, anyways, to pretend that you didn't know, like, how fucking stupid do you think we are? And if that's the case, this is a House Speaker supposed to, and you invited them, no vetting whatsoever? Nothing? No clue? No, like, oh, wait a minute. So this guy was Ukrainian and he fought against the Russians in World War II. What Ukrainians fought against the Russians in World War II? All right. The fucking Nazis, the Nazi units, right? The ones who supported Germany. We all know, I mean, or at least those of us who are smart enough to know a little history, know that the Allies and Russia were the ones that joined forces, once again, not defending any of these fucking nationalists or these collectivists, right? Or these authoritarian regimes. Because once again, we're all talking about governments here. Governments, right? But the Allies and Russia were the ones that fought together, right? Russia coming from the east, the Allies from the west, to defeat Nazi Germany and Mussolini's Italy, right? Both of them were like the fascist regime. So to pretend that you didn't know that a Ukrainian nationalist, and that's the thing, we'll get to this too, he doesn't hide. Facebook pages, blogs. They've been honored in Canada for decades since, right? So to pretend that you didn't know that is an absolute lie. An absolute lie. And at some point in time, it will be proven so. The Speaker's office had said Hunka's son contracted Rota's constituency office and asked if it would be possible for Mr. Hunka to attend the address in the House of Commons by Mr. Zelensky. The Speaker's office said it accepted this request. First of all, why would a guy that's and identified as a Canadian war hero or a Ukrainian war hero, why would a guy, so Ukraine is fighting Russia right now, and this whole thing with Zelensky, that's why he's brought here to get for more, asked to beg for more money, right? To fight against the Russians. Why did this guy even want to go? Why did this guy's son want him to go? Right? Those questions should be asked. Rota's constituency officer policy is to forward all invitations to the Speaker's office. The Speaker's office won't say who wrote a speech. Of course. In light of the uproar, B'nai B'rith Canada and the Friends of Simon Wiesenthal Center for Holocaust Studies are reiterating long-standing calls for the federal government declassify secret documents about Nazi war criminals in Canada. Yeah, I've got access to those things too, not the unreleased part of it, but yes, and it'll all be linked in the description of the live stream as well. So all this stuff will be on record and documented. This week, Immigration Minister Mark Miller said Canada has a really dark history with Nazis in Canada and could revisit demands to release documents. CBC News traveled to North Bay, Ontario this week, where shockwaves from the political controversy are being felt in Rota and Hunka's hometown. The family's in hiding here in North Bay, Bonifant said. I'm sure they're afraid to show their faces. Larry Fold is a North Bay resident who is part of the city's, get this one, city's small Jewish community. He lost family members in the Holocaust. Fold said the word Nazi and SS conjure up horrible imagery, and deservedly so. Fold said Rota called him on Sunday to personally apologize. He explained that he made a mistake and that Mr. Hunka was introduced to Parliament and his background was unknown, said Fold. And he regrets the situation. He regrets any pain or discomfort that he's caused to the Jewish community. Fold said he accepted the apology. He said he told Rota he knows there was no intended malice. So, holy fuck, CBC found the one Jewish person alive today, or I'm not saying the one, but there might be a few, that's willing to say, oh, yeah, no, that's cool. That's cool. No, yeah, no. Hey, I got you. I get your sincere, heartfelt apology, and I forgive you. Like this is the messaging that CBC wants to send. Like I said, could you imagine if the shoe was on the other foot? If it was anyone that was counter to the establishment, or even the ones right now in the Conservative Party, right? Although, once again, not defending any of these fuckers. They all stood there and did the same thing. And to pretend that none of them had any knowledge of history, right? Well, I mean, that's a blatant admission of what the fuck are you idiots doing anyways, right? You would think while you're standing there and they're introducing a guy, even if you don't know the history, as soon as you hear the fact that, oh, he fought on the side of Ukraine, it's like, whoa, hold on. Let me just hold my applause here till I've taken a moment to think about this shit rather than playing this, rah, yeah, Ukraine, right? Oh, we got to slip. Like I said, nationalism, ultra nationalism, I should say, right? Collectivism, fucking nonsense. Full said that he wrote about 20 years ago at a synagogue fundraiser, added that he's a staunch supporter of Israel. I think it's just very unfortunate that this lapse of investigation and protocols has gotten us to where we are today. It was just a lapse of investigation and protocol. Nothing to see here, folks. Just move along. Anyways, yeah, I think I've read enough of this nonsense, but wow, right? Wow. The rhetoric being espoused, the nonsense, once again, the defense. This is what CBC, this is what the established media and CTV as well, of course, this is what they do. They are the propagandist arm of the ruling establishment in this country. In particular, those on what they conceive of or perceive of as the left, right? Because they all identify. That's their collective group. That's their ideology of choice, right? That's their tribe. And be damned to anyone that won't conform or obey or abide by that kind of top-down authoritarianism. No. Like I say, the hilarious part, the projection, the fact that the media and these lefties that are governing this country constantly are pointing out and calling anyone that they disagree with or have different stances with as Nazis. I mean, the level of hypocrisy, the level of projection, it's palpable, folks. It's palpable. Okay, so let me just bring one more here. Let's see. Actually, let's get to some of the nitty gritty here. Let's get to some of the nitty gritty. Let's bring this one on. Let's bring this up here. Okay. Yeah. So there's this, and this is from B'nai B'rith, that Jewish group. And here it is here. It's called If Not Now, When? The Commission of Inquiry on War Criminals. So yes, this has been around for a long time. The fact that the term Nazi gets bandied about and thrown around so many times, you would think that CBC or CTV or any of the establishment would dig into the archives or maybe do a little, this didn't take me, fuck all. A Google search away is all it took, right? You would think with all the word Nazism and Nazis being turned around, you'd want to bring this information to light because this is kind of important. Maybe Canadians should know of this stuff, right? I would suggest. Now, this here was a posting they put out on 29th of September 2023. Ottawa, B'nai B'rith Canada is further advancing its call for the federal government to release the completed and unredacted 1985-1986 Deschênes Commission report on Nazis who immigrated to Canada after World War II, as well as all other classified Holocaust-related records. The Jewish community expected more than an apology after Parliament last week celebrated a 98-year-old former member of the Waffen-SS. Canadians deserve to know how and why Nazi war criminals were able to settle in this country. Yeah. Or just to even know, right? Is this taught in school? How come I don't hear a bunch of young people out there? Why do I not see constant protests about the fact there are thousands of Nazi war criminals living amongst us in this country? You would think that would be kind of an important thing, especially when you're talking about Nazis all the time, right? You think that would be something you might want to educate and inform Canadians, young and old, about this stuff, right? The Jewish community expects more than an apology after Parliament last week celebrated a 98-year-old former member of the Waffen-SS. Canadians deserve to know how and why. Okay. Several academics, scholars, and leading community organizations have either signed letters of support for or endorsed our ongoing national campaign to unseal Canada's secret Nazi records. These groups include, so these are all the groups that would like for Canadians to learn a little bit of history. And hey, I'm not a group, but you can include me on that list as well. Big fan of people knowing their history. B'nai B'rith has been involved in this sordid saga since before it began, when our senior legal counsel, David Mattis, represented B'nai B'rith before the Duchesne Commission. Ever since, Mattis and B'nai B'rith have been advocating for the release of the totality of the inquiry's findings to be made public, which has yet to be done, right? Within the past year, we have filed several access to information and privacy requests, all to no avail. Lawyers David Rosenfeld, Michael Wenig, and Rachel Silber, members of B'nai B'rith's Mattis Law Society, have provided invaluable assistance to our campaign to correct this historic wrong. And of course, these are all, anything that's highlighted in blue are all links, so you can click on them and get more information. A recent MLS event featured Alti Rodal, who in 1987 produced a study hinting at the shocking details that may remain redacted in the Duchesne Commission's report. Last February, B'nai B'rith made submissions to a House of Commons subcommittee mandating public disclosure of records regarding Nazi war criminals and establishing a public archive of Canada's Holocaust records. So think about it. We were all told, right? World War I, World War II, World War II in particular, our grandfathers and such went to fight against the Nazis. That was the point of them going and dying and making the ultimate sacrifice, which once again, I won't even get too far into that. I've discussed that stuff extensively in the past, but that's the pretense. And yet, while we're supposed to honor, remember Remembrance Day every year, November 11th, the day after my birthday, we're all supposed to remember the fallen soldiers who fought against the Nazi regime. Yet, how many of us were privy to the knowledge? Why is there no acknowledgement every November 11th? And the fact that, by the way, there were 2,000 Nazis brought to the shores of Canada to live among us, right? To be safe from prosecution. Don't you think that should be included in any information campaign as it pertains to World War I and the consequences, the fallout of the millions of people who died during that war? How can we learn from the past if we don't know what happened? Said Michael Moshton, B'nai B'rith's Canada's chief executive officer. Now is the time for Canada to confront its past transgressions, and that starts with the public disclosure of our history regarding Nazi war criminals and establishing a public archive of Canada's Holocaust records. And once again, I could not agree more on the fact that, yes, Canadians need to learn their history. And let me just throw this in there, folks, since we're on this whole thing in terms of, once again, bringing thousands of Nazis to the shores of Canada, right? Let me just read a little bit of this to you. This, too, may very well shock your sensibilities. Oh, let me bring this. Wait, now, hold on here. I got to bring this off. There we go. Let me bring this off. Okay. Screen sharing was canceled. Make sure to quick share. Okay. So there's this. Where we go? Universe. And once again, this information, it's all out there for people to find. It's a secret. It's an open secret. That's the insanity. It's there, but yet the media never or rarely ever covers this stuff. And like, this is really important stuff, right? So check this out, folks. I myself was not aware of this, which just goes to show someone like myself who wants to be privy to this kind of knowledge, this kind of information, and the fact that nobody, and I've been paying attention to the news for a long time, yet nobody in the established media, no one in the ruling class, no one in academia made this something that we should be well aware of, right? And promoted it. You would think it would, but anyways. Where are we at here? So this is from the University of Toronto Press. It's an actual book. And if you get the name of that book, and yes, I've ordered the book. Yes, I have. because I want to learn and not just in a small snippet. So, yeah, none is too many. Canada and the Jews of Europe, 1933 to 1948, by Irving Abello and Harold Traper. Forwarded by Richard Menkes, afterward by David Kaufman. So, what is this book about, you may ask? Well, let's get right here where it tells us what this book is about. Today, we think of Canada as a compassionate, open country to which refugees from other countries have always been welcome. However, between the years 1933 and 1948, and yeah, think about it, 1939 to 1945 is when the World War II happened, right? So that's within this time frame, and 3 years afterwards. When the Jews of Europe were looking for a place of refuge from Nazi persecution, Canada refused to offer aid, let alone sanctuary, to those in fear for their lives. So, Nazis, come on in, right? Jews, the Holocaust, the ones who were being persecuted and killed by the millions in Europe by the Nazi regime and their supporters. No. Nope, none of you. Sorry, you're not welcome here. Could you imagine? That's kind of important information that Canadians should be aware of. And once again, let me just preface this all too. Not like I'm saying all Jews are a collective of same like-minded individual or groups, right? No, there's probably some bad Jews, like every other human being on this planet, and some good Jews. So I'm not even saying that we should just align and support all Jews, right? Not going that way at all. So once again, I deal with people as the individual. I like to perceive of other people in my community or in the world as individuals at the individual level, because I don't know. The minute you identify as a group, well, what the fuck is that even supposed to mean to me? What is that supposed to mean to me? I need to know a little bit more, right? But I just want to point out the fact that, because this is pointing out the level of hypocrisy. Like I say, no matter what side you're on, once again, I don't play sides. This is the thing. I take a principled stance. I use ethics and first principles. I don't give a shit about groups. I'm not a tribalist, right? I'm not a collectivist. I'm a libertarian who thinks and cares about individuals at the individual level. Because really, at the end of the day, that's all that really matters, right? Anyways, when the Jews of Europe were looking for, rigorously documented and brilliantly researched, None is Too Many tells the story of Canada's response to the plight of European Jews during the Nazi era and its immediate aftermath, exploring why and how Canada turned its back and hardened its heart against the entry of Jewish refugees. Recounting a shameful period in Canadian history, Irving Abello and Harold Traper traced the origins and results of Canadian immigration policies towards Jews and conclusively demonstrate that the forces against admitting them were pervasive and rooted in anti-Semitism. First published in 1983, folks. This was published in 1983. That was when I was 13 years old. And was I ever privy to this knowledge by all of our thought leaders at any point in time? No. It's a past that, once again, it's there, but they like to obscure it. And if you're people like any of the First Nations people that, I was oppressed or this, listen, stop playing the identity politics yourself, right? Stop fucking playing this game. White man bad, First Nation people good, right? Let's fucking talk to each other. Let's actually have a discussion, right? Because as we're finding out, whole lot of white people, whole lot of all kinds of people of all different colors, backgrounds, stripes, right? And ethnic origins have been treated very poorly by who? Statists, by those in government. Once again, government is not your friend. I don't give a fuck who you are, what your background, how you identify, right? Or your politics. Government is not your friend. It never has been and never fucking will be. Government is force. That's what government is. Anyone that wants to use it to clobber their opponents or their enemies are bad people inherently. So stop playing the left-right thing. Stop playing the identity politics shit. And let's get down to the business of acknowledging just how inherently immoral government is. That's the kind of discussion that needs to take place. Not this shit of pitting groups against each other, right? Even, and let's just acknowledge right now with what the Truth and Reconciliation, right? Oh, white people bad. White people bad. No, some white people, those in government or institutions that claim to be in some position of authority over you, they're bad. The color of their skin, fuck all of that shit. It means absolutely nothing, right? First published in 1983, None is Too Many has become one of the most significant books ever published in Canada. This 40th anniversary edition celebrates the book's ongoing impact on public discourse, generating debate or ethics and morality in government, the workings of Canadian immigration and refugee policy, the responsibility of bystanders, righting historical wrongs, and the historian as witness. Above all, the readers ask, what kind of Canada do we want to be? Once again, what kind of Canada do we want to be? I mean, that's some nationalist talk right there, right? There's so much more to it. That's why, to me, what you named a gigantic piece of geography that stretches from one coast of North America to the other coast of North America, and where did even the term North America come from? So, I mean, I won't go down the rabbit hole that far just yet, because, yeah, we can go. There's so many different ways that you can travel or think about in terms of this nationalist shit or this continentalism or imperialism or colonialism and all this shit. There's just so much about it. But once again, that's why really thorough discussions need to take place. And nuance needs to be introduced. This new anniversary edition features, and I would love to have, if any of you have any, like an original copy, I would love to know if there's been any revisionism or rewriting of history between the two, because I'm getting the new version, but I would love to be able to know and see for myself if there's any differences, right? Is it being tweaked, right? This new anniversary edition features a foreword by Richard Makus on the impact this book made when it was first published, and an afterword by David Kaufman explaining why the book remains critical today. So once again, this is actually already linked in the description of the live stream. Anyways, I'm just going to, before I continue on, and yeah, lots to cover, and I'm going to cover it. I'm just going to do it, folks. I'm just going to do it. But yeah, I'm just going to get back into the live stream here. Millions of innocents were killed also by the Allied air forces fleeing into Germany, as well as the other ground in other countries backed by the high. Once again, I like, to me, nations are what create war. You know, Jews, white people, right? Germans. It's government at the end of the day, folks. Governments, like, their ethnic background, to me, it's like it's so meaningless in the grand scheme of things, because my history, my heritage, other than Canadian, if you go back far enough, is Irish and Scottish, right? There were some good Irish, there were some bad Irish, right? There were some good Scottish, there's some bad Scottish. That's why I don't identify or make nationality or my ethnic background as the dominant basis for how I describe or who I am as a person. No, my name is Ben Hunter, right? Here are my, if you want to know something about me, here are my principles. Here's what I stand for, right? Here are the ethics and the morals that I hold near and dear to my heart. Right? In terms of, yes, like I said, which is why I said there's good and bad in every race, creed, or culture that has ever existed or flourished. That is just a fact, which is why I try to rise above and hopefully bring fellow travelers like yourself along with me, rising above the fray of playing the identity politics game, because it does nothing but create division and people's ability to forget about anything else, all the nuance, all the important actual facts, right? And fundamentals that really should be take precedent in these kinds of discussions. It destroys the ability for people to think critically and to speak openly and forthright about these things. Start from the basis of define your terms, right? Identify the ethics that you stand for, the principles that matter most to you, right? That guides your decisions and your actions, right? and the thoughts that roll around in your cranium. Those are the things that matter to me, first and foremost. And I would agree with you there for sure. Of course, there's probably some Russian, I don't know what they want to call themselves, that are doing some terrible things too. All at the behest and orders of the state. Of the state. All of this, no matter which group, no matter which culture, no matter which country, it all happens at the behest of the state. And people's willingness to conform to the ideology of statism, the religion of statism, right? It turns people's minds into mush. I mean, you're talking about people who will go to foreign countries or even in their own countries and kill people that they don't even know, who maybe never have done one thing against them. But because they were told that's your enemy, that to me, that's the area that matters most. That is the area where we really need to talk about this stuff, because for sure, you're absolutely right. But there's bad people on both sides. And all of the ones that I can point to are the ones that are doing the bidding of status. If you at least understood what the state is, what government is, that should be enough knowledge to give you a baseline understanding that these people are, the whole thing is built and based upon unethical, not just words, but actions. The state is, first of all, statism is slavery. Statism is enslaving your mind. It prevents you from thinking critically, just like some of the religions in the past. It prevents you from thinking critically about these things, which is why I reject it outright. Sure, there are things that we all can get proud of, but you got to put that stuff into context. You got to think, wait a minute, did I do that? Or even if your team wins, like when you hear people say, oh, my team, oh, we won. We won? What the fuck are you talking about? Were you playing? I didn't see you out there on the fucking field anywhere, right? And I'm not against people supporting their sports team, but what I'm against, what causes me concern, is the people with that blind obedience or conformity to some idea of a group, right? Now in the sports field, it's usually not that much of a detriment, even in the bash and bruising sport of football, right? The worst that can happen is, well, actually, I suppose you can get fairly well harmed, but with all the equipment they wear today, for the most part, you're relatively safe and will walk away. But once again, it's the idea of that blind conformity, of that, whether it's ultra-nationalism or just ultra-obedience to a group, right? Or the us versus them thing, without any nuance whatsoever. Hey, Gato, how you doing, my friend? Thanks for joining the stream. Really appreciate that. Well, I get you in terms of Silent Walk, all wars are banker wars, and I can't remember exactly who that quote came from. Yes, in some way, but I mean, you have to have the money to fund it, right? And so the bankers are typically the ones, obviously, that fund these wars, right? But once again, bankers, what are these bankers, right? These are institutions. Once again, there are some people that work for banks that I'm sure are so unsuspecting of anything that they're just people who are just going along, right? They just want to get a job, or they have an occupation. But the thing is banks are of no threat to me. A bank, as far as I know, and I have never heard anyone ever tell me that a bank has any authority to impose their will on me. Nope. And you can't point to any example of that where anyone alive today thinks that a bank has the ability to impose their will on me or to cause harm to me economically or socially. Now, we can point to a very clear example in recent history in Canada where the government, right, the state, told the banks and the banksters, you must deny these, let's say the trucker protesters, ability to withdraw funds or to freeze their bank account, right? To prevent them from even having any economic viability, right? So you can point your finger to the banks that went along to go along, and yes, they are culpable, 100%. But you got to go all the way back to where did that authority originate to do those things, to impose those vile deeds, or to prevent people from having access to their own money, right? Government. the state. That's where it originates. So once again, I'm with you. And some of these banks, and in particular, I hope these ones that actually went along with the state and didn't have the audacity, the courage of their conviction, and were too cowardly to stand up against it, or maybe some of them tacitly supported it. Who would know? I can't say that I'm living in the minds of these people, but let's try to hold, right? Let's get back to the actual culprit, which is the state at the end of the day. Hey, welcome to the stream, Joe Lamaza. Today is my birthday. Well, happy birthday to you. I'm sitting in my garage having a coffee and smoking a cigar and listening to this live. What a perfect birthday. Well done, sir. Keep it up. Well, thank you. Really appreciate that. And I really am thankful for you joining the stream, and I'm hoping you're having a great day and good for you. Enjoy your birthday and the odd rant from time to time, because if you're not privy to me or watching my live streams in the past, yes, I definitely, I'm a compassionate individual, and yes, and I don't hold back, right? Like I say, I have no tribe. Well, other than my immediate family, and even in my immediate family, I hold them to a standard. I'm not just blindly loyal to everyone in my family, right? Right? I don't just say, oh, you did something really bad, or you murdered someone. Oh, well, you're part of the family. That's okay. No, like I say, there's some actual critical thinking that goes on in this head. And that's why I don't play the tribalism thing, not even down to the micro level of the immediate family. This is why I reject collectivism and tribalism outright. And once again, this is kind of apt. The fact that not just the stories that are coming out today in terms of the Nazis that live in among us, right? Or the ones that are right blatantly out in our fucking face, like the Trudeau liberals, although like the Nazi thing isn't easy. Authoritarian collectivists is really what they are. You know, their particular way of implementing their ideas or how they do it, they tweak it. Like I say, Nazis, fascists, commies, socialists, Democrats, right? Democracy. I mean, think about even democracy. Everyone likes to think that, oh, democracy is great. Well, what does democracy represent? Look it up sometime, right? Defined meanings really matter. That's how we understand the language that we're using, is words have defined meanings, and democracy is majority rule. Oh, so if you can get enough people together, if 51 people decide that they want to impose themselves or their will on the 49, oh, we support that? We're supposed to applaud that? Nope. I don't support that at all. I acknowledge and respect the sovereignty of the individual, not the sovereignty of the state, which is just a mystical construct, a concept that does not exist. It's a mystical entity, right? No. The sovereignty, if you care about sovereignty or minority rights, as Ayn Rand said, then the individual is the one that matters most, because we're all individuals. So if you reject the individual, don't fucking come to me and talk about you care about sovereignty or minority rights, right? And like I say, doesn't matter if you're First Nations person. That's the thing. They stole our land. Oh, who the fuck are you to claim the entire continent of North America? Or what people call the Turtle Island, or what the colonialists call Canada. You get to claim all of that? That's yours, is it? People like myself who might have been our past generations who might have been brought here as Irish, indentured servants, right? What? Because I just by happenstance was born multiple generations later, right? And I actually paid for the land I fucking live on, right? And I only got a small little parcel here, and it's right, not like I claim ownership, but I'm a bad guy. Why? Because this color of my skin or some history that I had nothing to fucking do with? No, I reject that shit outright too. And like I say, doesn't matter your color, doesn't matter the tribe that you claim to be yours. I will call each and every one of you. How about you forget about the tribalism shit, the identity politics? Let's talk to each other mano, right? Man to man, woman, man to child, whatever the hell, as the individuals we are. Put all this bullshit, this other bullshit, Leafs versus Canadian, red versus blue shit aside. Let's just talk to each other as fucking the human beings we are, the individual human beings that we are. That's my thing. That's the philosophy of liberty. That's the importance of understanding ethics and morals and first principles, right? But yeah, thanks for joining the stream. Hope you're enjoying the rants. Oh, yeah. Well, yes, that's once again, that's another area where the media will take advantage too. Trust me, I'm not above knowing that even the fact that this is talked about, it's still the Nazis were white people, right? So there's some areas where, yes, the established media will actually support the narrative to a degree, but only for the sole purpose of, once again, making out white people as the bad people, right? And once again, the color of the skin, just to me, it's like, so okay, what else you got? Okay, their skin's white. What else do you got? Because that's pretty minimal in terms of what they represent as a human being, as if we're a monolith, right? Or white people. Like what? Hashtag all white people? What the fuck? What the fuck? I don't know. There's some really, like I've said many times in the past, most people who have oppressed me even and done terrible, harmful things to me, both socially and economically, were white people. But of course, people from other backgrounds and cultures and ethnic backgrounds have done so too. But once again, I don't say, oh, a black guy did something bad to me. No, that guy, right, who just happened to have black skin, or that guy that just happened to have white skin, or that girl or that woman who just happened to have whatever color, that's the person. I acknowledge the individual, or those people that, whether they're white, black, there might be one of each that tried to fuck with me. Once again, the skin color is so, who cares? The individual or the group, the people that are doing it. And the group is just a representation of a bunch of individuals. So once again, if your basis is to start out with the color of a person's skin as the sole identifier, then okay, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. But that's just the wrong way to look at things. I doubt this guy ended up in the parliament by accident. Most likely they wanted to get rid of the speaker. But I guess we will never know. I mean, that's a great thought experiment. That's a decent hypothesis, Gato. Oh, look at that. My views, I'm down to 2. I'm touching on, so that tells me I'm touching on all the right nerves. That's actually awesome, because as one thing I am is an equal opportunist when it comes to pissing off people who are statists or playing to the identity politics game. And I'm fine with that. I'm cool with that. But anyways, yeah. So I doubt this guy ended up in the park. Yeah, well, like I say, who would know, right? I mean, if you've read the book The Prince by Machiavelli, or even understand the concept is, I mean, reverse psychology, or even when you're talking about bringing in psychology into the thing, which actually is kind of the same thing, I guess. But I mean, there's a multitudes of reasons, right? And it's not a bad thing to hypothesize and speculate. I do myself on a regular basis. I don't know. But I can't know. Neither can you, Gato. And that's the thing, right? We don't know. We don't know. But what we do know, the things, like I say, the things that we do know that are like not just undeniable, is ethical base, the basis for ethics and first principles, right? Just like with math. I don't know what, there's all kinds of different equations that I could try to figure out, but I can't do it if I don't understand mathematics. Just like when you're talking about, humans and how we cohabitate and coexist each other socially and economically. The underlying basis has to be, is it done through voluntary means, or are you forcing or imposing you? That's where the ethical lens, that's the spotlight that you need to put on it. You have to put the ethical lens on everything and your principles, right? That to me is the fundamental basis, and where your starting point when you're dealing with any of these topics or subject matter. Fuck Russia, right? Fuck lots of states, like fuck statism, right? How's that? Fuck statism. So here you go, Slava Ukraine. Like here you go. So there's a nationalist right there. It's like such simplistic thinking, right? But I mean, hey, I do appreciate that you joined the stream, and you have the freedom to speak, and that's the thing. One thing, like I actually do support freedom of speech. So if you're a big supporter of nationalism for that particular plot of earth or tribe that you want to seek to belong to, right? Then hey, you do your thing. But what's that old saying? Live by the sword, die by the sword. Live by the state, die by the state. And once again, people like myself, just like very small minorities of people in the past, whether it takes a day, a month, a year, 10 years, 100 years, my stance will withstand the test of time, because I'm not playing tribalism or games that, because that's the thing. All this stuff changes. This all will change in due time. Whether which state you agree with, whoever's the dominant force of the day, if you take the ethical stance and the principled stance, well, like I say, no matter if you're watching this live stream today or in 100 years from now, because I guide my ideas, my thought processes, and my perspectives on principles and ethic that are underpinned by proper ethics, like I say, it'll withstand the test of time. That's why, to me, is like, whether a few people support me today or they finally all come around, because I will admit people eventually will come around, or at least the ones that actually want to think critically, right? Okay. Or maybe they were trying to demonize Canadian. As always, Trudeau blamed Canadians for his bad doings. Once again, that's possible as well. That's possible as well. Yeah, silent walk. Hear from the government and we're here to help. Anyways, let me get back into some more of these articles here. I'm just going to bring this one up. It's behind a paywall and I don't pay for the Globe and Mail. So I'll just kind of give you the snippet, the headline of this. But once again, this will be linked in the description of the live stream. Head of a Canadian-Ukrainian group defends man who fought for unit created by Nazi. And this was produced by Morgan Lowry, the Canadian Press, yesterday. So the date will actually show up once a day has gone by or so. But yeah, head of Canadian-Ukrainian group defends man who fought. So they're even defending this man. And once again, I don't know the man personally. I just know that this blind allegiance to ultranationalism, without thinking critically, without any nuance, and the fact that you're willing to kill people on behalf or the behest of a state, it just tells me that you're just in the wrong mindset, no matter which side of the coin you fall on, right? Anyways, close that one up. Okay. Where are we at here? Oh yeah, this is. Oh, let me bring this up. I just wanted to show this because I found this a bit odd. Because once again, I was Google searching, trying to find lots of information pertaining to this story, and I come across this, which was really strange. So the search that I put in was more or less put this person's name and Parliament, Nazis, just a few keywords. And oddly enough, this came. Now, this, as you can see, let me just make sure you folks can see. Yes. This link, as you can see, breaking news, this page is broken. Our brand new VR1000 tape machine can't seem to find the page you were looking for. And I've reloaded it multiple times, so it's gone. It's ceased to exist. The record, now, there's probably a way to find it in the archive, no doubt. But anyways, if you look up here, though, here's the link. So this is the beautiful thing about having these links. So if you look at it, so it comes from the cbc.ca, but it's kids news. It's under the kids news section, post, and then look, who is Yaroslav Hunka and why is Canada apologizing for inviting him to Ottawa? Well, kids news, right? I wonder what kind of rhetoric or excuse making or apologetic stance or tweaking of history or revisionism took place in this particular article that caused the CBC to go in and basically get rid of it, right? Inquiring minds want to know. Oh, and then there's the wiki here. I'll get to that maybe in a bit. But I did want to bring this up because once again, there's nothing new. This stuff should have been widely known. And if the establishment media, the thought leaders in Canada were doing their actual jobs of properly informing and educating Canadians, a lot more Canadians would be privy to this kind of knowledge and this information. So here's it's literally a Facebook page. Like, the hilarious part is I've had my Facebook page, Canadian Libertarian, which all I talk about is, like I say, not using force or violence or imposing my will. The opposite of that. and trying to hold myself to a ridiculously high standard in terms of the kind of stuff I talk about and support. And yet my page has been hampered and hindered and suppressed, right? So many times to the point where it's really difficult to get stuff out there. I mean, look at this. This Facebook page not only still exists, but wait till you see like some of the history. And I already hit the translation thing there. So that's the name of it. It's actually well, we'll get to the name. What is it called here? Let me scroll on to this other page. I think it's part of the Combatants News, I believe, which is these Ukrainian Canadians who fought for the Nazi regime in that unit, that SS unit, right? On behalf of the Nazi regime, voluntarily, I might add. But this is a bunch of them and their history in terms of when they came to Canada and stuff. So here we go. This particular see original. Okay. So here's a picture. Let me make sure you folks can see that. Yeah. So here's a picture of the big Canadian flag and the monument. Where is this? In Ottawa, probably somewhere. Anyways, Divizinski or whatever, participate in the dedication of a monument to the fallen Ukrainian soldiers in the Canadian Armed Forces in Toronto. The dedication took place in October 5th, 1980, folks. 1980. Oh, right? Not only is that in the timeline when I was alive, but it's something that Canadians should be aware of today. It's a monument to the fallen Ukrainian soldiers and the Canadian Armed Forces in Toronto. I mean, are these some of the people who were part of that Waffen division, right? The Nazi unit? Let me get down. There's some more here. Ivan Kubetsky Kupchik was born on August 1st, 1895 in the village of whatever, Ukraine. He finished the folk school in his family village and to the gymnasium went to the city of whatever, where his father lived. Captain of the Austrian Army in the First World War. He served as a peer in the 24th Infantry Regiment of the Austrian Army. There was a military visit for seniors and whatever near Vienna, was the commander of the first whatever something intelligence unit and took part in the battles on the Austro-Russian front in 19. Anyways, so like I say, there's lots of history here. Here we go. In 1944, it falls into the German division Viking E, which passes the battles of the territory of Poland. And in November, that he is transferred to the Ukraine division with his other friends. Wounded in battle in Austria, falls hostage in Italy and therefore in England. In 1952, off to Canada to Red Lane, where he works in gold mines. In 1955, he's moved to Winnipeg, where he became a member of the Brotherhood Station of Anyways, so like I say, there's lots of history just on this page alone in terms of a lot of these Ukrainians that came to Canada to sought refuge, and a lot of them who were Nazis. And the Yaroslav, whatever, Honka, the man in question, the 98-year-old Nazi volunteer, is a contributor to this particular Facebook page as well, and has contributed based on recent reports. Was a contributor and was out in the open about it, not even hidden, right? So once again, the fact that this stuff was out there, and yet Canadians alive today, we're not privy to this information, especially when the media constantly wants to talk about Nazis. I mean, that seems to be quite a disturbing thing as far as I'm concerned. Now, here is an actual blog of that 98-year-old former Nazi. So this is the blog that he contributed to. It's called Combatants News, internet version of the quarterly of the Association of the Former Soldiers of Ukrainians in America, Brotherhood of the Soldiers of the First UDUNA. Monday, March 21st, 2011. So this blog was done by Yaroslav Honka, that 90-year-old former Nazi. They got the standing ovation by all parties, I might add, right? In the House of Commons. So yeah, Pierre Poilievre to pretend like, the great pretenders. That's, if there's one thing I've learned, if you support a politician of any stripe, you're going to be greatly disappointed, right? My generation was united by two great forces, faith in God and love for Ukraine. We grew up in the glorious and proud land of blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so once again, if you want to continue on to read this, I just highlighted some of the stuff down here in the bottom. I figured was kind of, you know, get to the nitty gritty of things, I guess. Fear of the unknown enveloped us in the entire nation. The terror of Moscow communism. Once again, not a defender of communism by any stretch. Another very evil ideology that basically does the same thing. Suggests that you sacrifice the individual or those who are your opponents, plays identity politics, but on a much grander, more severe, more deadly scale of go kill that person because, right? Because my tribalism, my statism, right? My collectivism. The NKVD had eyes and ears everywhere. Friends to friend to friend, brother to brother could not speak sincerely for fear of betrayal. The worst thing is that the viper who terrorized us spoke our native language. Each time, a larger part of the population became enemies of the people. At school, we had to sing songs of praise to our executioners. And the monthly wall newspapers, which each class had to publish, praised Father Stalin and the Communist Party to the heavens. In July 1941, the German army occupied Berzani. We greeted the German soldiers with joy. Nair had felt a thaw, knowing that there would be no more of the dreaded knocking on the door in the middle of the night, and at least it would be possible to sleep peacefully now. Right. After entering Berzan, the Germans occupied the new gymnasium under the administrative building, and our classes were moved to the old traditional place, the second floor of the town hall. The new liberator of the Ukrainian people, Führer Hitler, right? The new liberator, one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter, right? That's the power of statism, folks. The cult, the religion of statism. And I highly recommend you reject that outright. The new liberator of the Ukrainian people, Führer Hitler, reigned over the Berezhkinsk land. Portraits of Hitler in a long overcoat with a raised cowl covering his menacing face with small, as if artificially attached whiskers under his sharp nose, and with the inscription, Hitler Liberator, hung in each class. The Fuhrer immediately revealed his plans for Ukraine, liquidating the provisional Ukrainian government in Lviv and imprisoning Ukrainian leaders in concentration camps. Yeah. What a great thing. Like, once again, unbelievable. A new wave of arrests followed. It was easier to confront the new enemy because he was easy to recognize. He spoke a foreign language to us. He did not permeate our society with sexos as the Muscovite did. In the gymnasium, science took place in a national spirit with lectures on religion. We could freely talk to each other about various topics, including politics, without any fear. Now, Professor Mikhailo Rebrick became the strictest, who decided to raise us all to be perfect gentlemen, which was impossible to do. The organization of Ukrainian nationalists organized its cells in the gymnasium and embraced many young people. I just turned 16, and the next 2 years were the happiest years of my life. I had no idea that what I experienced in those 2 years would fill me with the love for my native city in such a way that it would be enough for me for the rest of my life. I didn't know then that dreams about those 2 years, about the company of charming girls, about the carelessly cheerful friends, about fragrant evenings in the luxurious castle, park, and walls around the city would help me get through the anxious times of the following years. That the memories of the Bereshkunsk gymnasium in the old city hall with its professors and with its increasingly cheerful and noisy students will support my heart and soul in a foreign land in the coming decades. Anyways, so once again, there's that one, and then there's another one here. Let me just bring this one up. Try to get through these rather quickly here. There we go. So this is another one from that Combatant News blog. So it's showing what's this? A clipping of a newspaper of some sort, perhaps a Sigrunun, the Waffen SS in Historical Perspective, Volume 4, Number 1. April Glendale, SS Weapons from Historical Perspective. Each issue has 22 pages of normal magazine format, richly illustrated and devoted to the history of the SS Arms Division. In the mentioned issue, the history of the Ukrainian division begins. Calculated for 6 issues of the magazine, it is appropriate to call this publication a magazine because each number consists of 11 single sheets, densely printed with small margins and indents. Number 119 begins the history of our division. Its genesis, proclamation, training, and major maneuvers before going to the front. We find there are facts unknown to us, or perhaps forgotten over the years. The publisher and author promised to fix a few mistakes in the next issue, dedicated to the Battle of Brody. Who is interested in new publications about UD? You can order this publication from the publisher. The author writes about the UD with great sympathy, mentions that the volunteers considered their division as the nucleus for the creation of the Ukrainian army. Some Germans also believed that the division would become the first armed formation of the Ukrainian state. It seems to me that this addition will be useful for us too, even if only those 6 numbers intended for the history of the UD, so that our young people can familiarize themselves with the military history of the division in the Second World War. So anyways, this here is all links to a lot of very useful information as it pertains to, this Ukrainian division. And this is something else that I wanted to bring up because once again, I'm not sure on this, so I'm just speculating here, but I just did find it interesting. So this here is a search I put. So Yaroslav Honka, because there was something about CTV News and as it pertains to the Russian invasion, and Harper, right? Harper, because in 2014, Harper was in charge. And I found it interesting that when I went through this and I was trying to get, because once again, as much as I'm against the regime of the Trudeau Liberals, I am no fan or supporter of the Harper conservatives that came before him, or some of these conservatives who claim to be against some of the things that they supported in the past. But I found it quite striking that if you look for that name, and this is the thing about the Google links, right? There's always not just a link to the source, but there's usually some kind of snippet or caption that was originated in the original article to give you at least some kind of context. And this, once again, is from CTV News. Sergeyev called on the UN Security Council to stop Russian aggression. Diplomatic landmine. Could 90-year-old vet be extradited? False. So this was supposedly dealing with this year as well. And it was the same with down here, basically the same kind of thing. Now, what it means, I am not 100% sure on, but there does seem to be that perhaps even back in 2014, that some of this stuff might have been known, although by mere fact that they used the age 98, well, this gentleman would not, or should I say, shouldn't use the word gentleman, this former Nazi, it wouldn't have been 98 in 2014. So once again, I'm not 100% sure on that, but I figured I'm just going to include as much information as possible for those of you who want to be privy to this knowledge and maybe take the time to learn some nuance yourself. So yeah, I think in terms of articles, I've covered quite a bit of that stuff. So let me just continue on. I'll get back in the chat here. Check out some of you folks here. So in Western countries, you're free. Oh my goodness. Well, I've covered that kind of topic so extensively. I don't even know if I need to bother wading in, but all states are oppressive. If you feel free in your particular state, like perfect example here, let me just use this for an example. If you were part of the Nazi SS in Germany, it was quite freeing for you because you were part of the ruling class. or you supported the ruling class, or you went along with the ruling class, or you abided or conformed to the ruling class. So if you're one of those people, your perspective is it's free. Because look, I have freedom of speech. I can say whatever I want. You might be able to say what you want, but chances are that the reason why you believe you're free is because you're not saying the things like I would say. I'm not free to say what I have to say. Oh no, I've had my speech suppressed and silenced a good many, many, many times. And there are a lot of Canadians that would love to shut me up indefinitely and permanently for the sheer fact that, yeah, I'm not beholden to the state. I challenge the state because I know what the state represents, right? And I know what statism represents, the cult, the religion of statism, which I reject outright. So if you believe you're free, no matter what plantation or country you live on, you might believe that because you've never challenged the status quo or the establishment, or you're part and parcel of it, or, which a lot of you do, get your paycheck from it, right? So you might believe that, but ask some of those truckers, right, who stood up in defiance of the authoritarian edicts of the Trudeau regime, right? Ask some of those how free they were when the Trudeau Liberals invoked the Emergencies Act, sent out, countless thousands of mindless order followers to beat them down and to demand that their bank accounts and to target, whether it was Give, Send, Go or GoFundMe, to prevent anyone from even being able to organize, in particular monetarily, in a way to defend themselves or to support themselves as they stood in defiance of the state or the current regime in power. Ask them how free they are in Canada, and you'll see that your perspective is 180 degrees, the opposite of what their perspective is. So this is the thing, right? Just like I said early on in the stream, one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter when you're talking about state versus state or statism in general. And yes, if you're not familiar, if you're new to this government and the state, same shit, different pile, right? Same, different wording, same thing. And government is force. So when you're talking about support, no matter what part of the state or what state, you support forcing yourself on the other. So if you're in the majority or part of the regime or support the regime, yeah, it's very freeing. It's very liberating for you, right? Because to you, it's, well, my opponents, or I wouldn't want them. Think about it. If you want to think about things logically, principally, and consistently, imagine your worst enemy, the people you loathe and loathe you and would love to do harm to you. Put them in charge of you, or that they now have the voting bloc, a majority, and have the ability and the means to impose their will on you. And ask yourself, how free would you be then? Still living in the same country, right? But would you still consider yourself to be free when your opponents are busy writing legislation, or like Trudeau with his political edicts, right? I mean, just the simple fact that Canada's Constitution and the Bill of Rights says, oh yeah, we acknowledge and recognize all your rights, except right here, we're like a couple areas where we got the notwithstanding clause, or we can override and overrule them anytime we want, right? Now, think about it. The lefties today, that's a great thing to talk about, actually. The lefties today are awful pissed off, like the alphabet identity politics group, the LGBT. They're really pissed off about the fact that Scott Moe out in Saskatchewan, has invoked the notwithstanding clause to overrule and override what a judge said, because a judge was an injunction against the Scott Moe, because Scott Moe said that they're going to basically do what Higgs in New Brunswick is the whole parent right thing. And I already mentioned about my stance on the parental right versus the protester thing earlier on the stream. Go back and check that if you want. But basically, the judge said, no, we're going to impose an injunction to allow this LGBT curriculum and all this stuff to be taught in school. So Scott Moe comes out and says, oh, no, I have the notwithstanding clause, so I can override even a judge. And I'm going to say, no, I have the final say because I have the notwithstanding clause, and you can't even challenge it. And the lefties, the identity politics group, are all up in arms today. So I can't believe he invoked the notwithstanding clause. Oh, he's a Nazi. Oh, he's evil. He's fascist. Oh, he's a terrible, terrible man, right? Yeah, maybe for your particular case, it, once again, all depends on your stance, your position, right? But every province in this country and the federal government has the ability to do the same thing. This is why principles matter, right? I am against statism and the notwithstanding clause, the pretense that anyone has the authority to override or overrule my inherent and inalienable rights. And I don't give a fuck if they call themselves conservative, liberal, New Democrat, whatever, green, PPC, anybody. If there's anyone that actually supports in any way, shape, or form the pretense that they have the right or the authority to take away my rights whenever they please, I'm against it. And if you have a principled stance, you want to take a principled position, you should be too. That's what it is to take a principled stance, which is why, yeah, I get it. I'm in the minority. You know what? Galileo was in the minority, right? There are lots of people throughout history were in the minority position that took the principled stance. But how many people, I mean, going all the way back to Aristotle, like they were trying to develop thoughts and understand principles and ethics and all this stuff, or your Socrates, all the minds in the past, all of the people, they were very, very, very tiny minorities. They were individuals. But even hundreds or thousands of years later, anyone that deals with the subject matter at all can say that one in a gazillion, that one in a million, they were the one that were taking the right, principled, and ethical stance. It was the mob. It was the collective. It was the majority who were on the wrong side of history. So as much as people like, go ahead. Oh, go run to your tribe. Like I say, I'll be right here. I'm not going anywhere either. That's the other thing. Well, I mean, I guess when I take my last breath, right? But even then, I don't know. Most people get buried 6 feet under. Well, if you want to shut me up and never hear from me again, you better fucking double down. Put her 12 feet. Dig down a little more further. Put some fucking work into it, you fucking grunts, right? Work for a living. Yeah, because you're going to have to. Because, yeah, I still might be whistling from the grave. Anyways, I'm a little wound up. And why shouldn't I be? Why shouldn't I be? Because not only are the commies and socialists and fascists, but yeah, there's definitely Nazis among us. And as the title of this live stream says, both past and present. And the fact that Canadians today, substantial portion of them who watch the established media, even with the established media and the ruling class playing politics and a little, propagandize and doing some apologetic tours and trying to distort reality. Yeah, but once again, the truth is coming out at least enough that it's going to really, really, really make it difficult for the statists, for the tribalists, for the collectivists. It's going to make it a little difficult for them. That's the thing about identity politics and all this stupid collectivism shit. And what was that old expression? First they went for it, but I'm not them, so I stayed silent. Well, eventually, like I say, these are authoritarian collectivists. Eventually, when they've run out of, enemies to go after, yeah, they'll come after you too. Yeah. They might save you for last, but then once they come after you, all the people that you were hoping that maybe might be there to defend you, they're not going to be there, right? So good luck with all that. Once again, live by the sword, die by the sword, live by the state, die by the state. Enjoy it. I even think about all the people who trusted government, right? Think about all the people who, rather than taking care of each other as families should, right? Immediate families like fathers, sons, daughters, grandparents, all that. Oh, no, we're going to offload all that responsibility to the state in these long-term care facilities or these hospitals, these institutions run, dictated, micromanaged, and controlled by the state. Yeah? How many of them? Yeah. Or all the people, I'm going to rely on my CPP to take care of me. Yeah, once again, see how that all works out for you in the long run. Right? Yeah. Not going to be good, folks, but hey, it is what it is. And yeah, sorry if it's making some people uncomfortable, but I just got to tell the truth. Whether the people want to see it, hear it, or acknowledge it, I'm going to do it anyways. What if the purpose behind the scandal is to start a witch hunt in Canada? I bet a lot of innocent people will be canceled and will lose more of their privacy rights. Well, I mean, that's fair. Once again, your speculation is not unfounded at all, Gato. Not at all. And I'm right with you there. We're trying to figure out what's up with this. What's 4D chess, or they just, once again, could be, but at the end of the day, it's also a lot of it. If you talk to people, Is like it's I guess it's easy based on, some of the like movies and cultural aspects that taught us about all this crazy stuff and the Machiavellian and the great writers, which typically come from the left and stuff, and how they can paint these amazing pictures, right? With such massively broad strokes, all that. But probably at the end of the day, it's not quite as sophisticated as we suspect, or at least by most people, right? At least by most people, or the puppets, even your Trudeau's. Like, first of all, I can't even think for 1 minute that Trudeau, it's some grand plan, right? Thought up or derived of by Trudeau. Like, oh, they fuck that guy, really? I mean, I don't even know how he puts his fucking socks on in the morning without instruction manual. So yeah, for someone like him, grand plans and stuff. I don't think so. I would probably err on the side of yeah, he's a tribalist, he's a collectivist, he's a statist. His mind is mush just like the rest of them. And they'll blindly conform and abide by all kinds of crazy shit by that sheer fact. Ah, shit. Anyways, yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly, right? Imagine being That's the thing, not sure if you meant to say that as a good thing or a bad thing, but here, let me just run this by you. Imagine being Galileo, right? Back in the day going and saying, "Hey, the Earth isn't the center of the universe. I invented this little thing, or I used this thing, this that we modern day folks call a telescope. I did some wicked observations over long periods of time, and I come to the realization that the Earth is not the center of the universe." Everybody in all of society believed otherwise, right? Believed in the nonsense that the Earth was the center of the universe and the Ptolemaic system was a real legit thing, right? That one guy, right? Standing out there in amongst the crowd saying, "No, the Earth isn't the center of the universe," right? Of course, the madness of the crowd would have all been, "Look at that crazy nutbar. Look at him. He's insane by daring to suggest that everything all of our thought leaders and our experts told us is wrong. How dare you?" Well, I mean, hey, listen, actually, I got a perfect example. I don't even have to go all the way back to people like Copernicus or Galileo. Actually, no, what am I thinking? Why not use my own example, right? Why not give myself my own little pat on the back? COVID, and it's all on record. I was one of the first, even with some of the big names in the liberty movement who were, you know, I'm not blaming them, I'm not hating on them. They come around, they took the time, they learned things. So that's the beautiful thing about people who are looking for truth rather than just to belong, right? But I was one of the very first ones early on. I caught the cues early on because I knew how to look for it, right? I knew the formulation and what to look for, and I caught the cues and I seen it. And because I'm pretty good with math, I could see the numbers and how it was panning out and how the sensationalized bullshit propaganda wasn't matching up with the reality that was on the ground or even my own personal anecdotal observations, right? And yeah, you can see, go all the way back to what is it, February of 2020, where I was pointing out already. So I was already front and center. I was one of a very, very tiny, small minority saying that, yeah, this COVID thing, it's not anything like the way the media or the ruling class is portraying it. Not even close. And what, just a few years later, when everyone was calling me, "Oh, I was the conspiracy theorist," or "I was the," yeah, they all have to acknowledge, "Oh shit, damn, you were right, Bennett, and I was wrong." Hey, it's all good. Once again, I've been wrong many times in my life. I know it's uncomfortable. It makes you feel like, like, ah, shit, nobody likes it. But the only way I ever got to the point where I can be at least more right than I am wrong and thinking critically about these issues is I have to at least be willing to go through that cognitive fucking acknowledgement and realize that, oh shit, that uncomfortable feeling, right? Even some of the religious orthodoxy that was jammed into me as a kid, I had to go through all that uncomfortableness of like, damn, you're rocking my worldview. But I'm so glad, I'm so appreciative today that someone in my life had the audacity, or at least I had the curiousness to search out alternative information and views so that I was not stuck in that dogmatic mindset, that idiotically driven area in my mind that just made it so that I could think critically at all, right? I am so thankful for that. And whether it takes you folks any amount of time, or those who are hating on me, hey, you might hate me now for helping you to learn some truth, But I hope that at some point in time in the future, you'll not just acknowledge it and appreciate it, but maybe pay it forward. Try to do that for others as well. Because really, if you want to live in a free, prosperous, peaceful society, the only way that can happen, just like the phrase that I've coined, liberty, true liberty requires evolution of our minds, not revolution. And if we can get enough people, and it doesn't have to be a majority, but humanity, the only way we advance forward and progress in any way, and I don't mean in a progressive, right? I mean actual progress so that we even understand what does it mean to be a free human being. So we have to be willing to listen to some cold, hard truths and some very underlying fundamental principles and ethics that will guide you not just in your political life or how politics plays out, but in your own personal life, your social life, and your economic life. It'll continue to pay off dividends for you and anyone else around you for long after all those uncomfortable feelings have subsided. I assure you that. But yeah, I think I've done a pretty good rant there today. I think I've covered this topic, the subject matter quite extensively, and I'll be definitely getting back into things here not too far from now. Construction season will be winding down, and yeah, instead of a one-off live stream like this, I'm gonna go balls deep, baby. No, but I'm gonna get right heavy back into the things because yeah, there's a void out there. There's a vacuum still, and yeah, I'll try to fill it as best I can. But anyways, all you folks, have yourself a great rest of the weekend. Not much to it now, I guess, but enjoy the rest of the day, and I'll see you in the next live stream. It's Canadian Libertarian, and I love liberty.